Follow Him Anyway is an album that came about as a result of my own personal encounter with the book of Ecclesiastes. A few years ago, I'd been in ministry for a few years already and was starting to get pretty disillusioned with my own efforts, really. Thinking that if God was really going to be faithful to me and to the work that I was doing as I was faithful to Him, I would be seeing a whole different kind of set of outcomes than what I was getting. Feeling as if I was bashing my head against a brick wall for the things that I wanted and completely blind to what God was actually doing around me, which was a lot. And as I flipped through the pages of Ecclesiastes as a result of one of the classes I was taking for my master's degree at MST, Bible School of Theology, all of a sudden these feelings, which I'd never been able to articulate and had been kind of boiling in the background, stealing my joy for quite some time, they took on life, they took on words, they took on a clear articulation that all of a sudden I was able to deal with them. They weren't just poisoning me ever so slowly from the inside anymore, but now they were things that had come to light that I could express and that simultaneously I could direct to God in faith, knowing that He would address them, but also that I could look at objectively and begin to see some of the stupidity there, really. And this is not an uncommon idea, and this is not an uncommon thing that happens in Scripture. We see this in a lot of the Psalms and the way that they express negative emotions and help us to direct those things in faith to God, even when there isn't clear resolution to those. And I like the way, as I researched this, which this whole thing became the basis for my final project for my master's degree, actually. As I researched what I was going to do and how I was going to write these songs, I came across this idea by Walter Brueggemann. And he pictures Scripture as kind of a courtroom testimony about God. And you've got, rightly so, a large chunk of it that is positive, that is good things about who God is and what He's done for us and how He has revealed Himself to us. But there's also this other smaller bit that's very necessary, in which, in a sense, we cross-examine God and we look at the exceptions, we look at the difficulties, we look at the problems and the things that would seem to undermine our faith in who God is and how He's revealed Himself. And we see how they stack up. We see whether or not they're true, and ultimately, I don't think we have a responsibility to reconcile. So I needed to think about what it is that we do with this. A book of the Bible that's not particularly flattering of God, it's actually quite negative of Him for the most part, and the world that He has created. And how it is that we can process through the same negative feelings that we have. There's songs in this album that are not particularly encouraging or flattering of God or probably of me as their writer either. And yet I think there are things that we'd be kidding ourselves to think that we don't feel them or think them sometimes or need to process through and direct them to God in some way. So when you get your hands on this music, I'd encourage you at least once to listen through from start to finish and go on that journey, go on the process that a book like Ecclesiastes can take us through of our own despair, our own disillusionment, our own depression, and find that ultimately the satisfaction of this life is the satisfaction that God intends for us, not the one that we think we should have, which is really obedience and life with Him. And the encouragement in that is that not only is there satisfaction to be found in faithfulness to God in its own way and on His terms, but also that as Christians, we know that we have one step further than the hope of Ecclesiastes, which is that Jesus has been through the same journey that we have. He understands deeply the futility and the difficulty of life. And I can identify he also found joy obeying His Father, right up to and including and beyond His death and resurrection. And so, when you get your hands on that music, let me know if it is of some benefit to you. I'd really love to hear it from you. And thanks for all your support. You can find it out September 25 on iTunes and Apple Music and Spotify and Google Play and all the places that you stream. And if you'd really love to support me and the music that I make and maybe enable me to make some more, the best way you can do that is go to Bandcamp, which you can find all of these things through my website, thomasprouse.com. Thanks so much.